أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to our 11th week. We are going to do the rest of chapter 13, which is the expenditure cycle today, inshallah. We have just a little bit left, and then I will remind you with some upcoming due dates and deadlines, and then answer your questions on chapters 12 and 13, which are included in the quiz on Tuesday, and if you have any questions on the project. So let's start. The next few slides are about threats and controls in the different steps, different activities in the expenditure cycle. So the first activity in the expenditure cycle is ordering, then we have receiving, and then we have paying. So the first one is ordering. The threats that we can face in the ordering step includes the first and the second. We'll discuss them together. Stockouts and excess inventory. So you could run out of inventory and your customers may go somewhere else to buy the product. In that case, you'll lose sale. If you have excess inventory, if you order too much, then you either can have the inventory expire, or they can go out of season, they can go out of date. For example, if you bought too many winter clothing items and the winter is over, then you have to sell it for a very low price, or you might even have to store them for the next season, which costs money. If you order too many items that are outdated very quickly, like technology gadgets, tablets, phones, computers, then you might have to sell them for a lower price if the next model comes out. So having too much is a problem, having too little is a problem. You need to order the right amount of inventory based on your business strategy and based on your inventory ordering system. So you might predict based on your sales, or you might save by buying in bulk. Depending on your business model, you have to decide how much inventory you're going to carry so that you don't run out, nor do you have a lot of extra inventory. You have number 3, which is purchasing goods at an inflated price. Buying the same item, exact same item from a vendor, from a supplier that sells it for a higher price is going to lower your profit because you're paying more than what you should for the item. If it's, let's say, for example, Nescafe coffee, and more than one supplier provides that, it's the same item. It doesn't matter where you buy it from. The supplier that provides with the lower cost is the supplier you should buy it from, but you need to know who's selling it for what price. So that information is necessary for you to know. Just like we shop around for the lowest price if we're buying a computer or a tablet or a phone, we want to know if the same phone is on sale somewhere and we would like to get it from there. Their businesses are no different. You need to know the items and the prices and who's offering what price. Number 4, use of unauthorized vendor. We discussed, if you remember last week, that the vendors or the suppliers are selected based on the best value, their quality, their price, and their reliability. And you have a list of authorized vendors that you should buy your computers from Lenovo, you should buy your projectors from Panasonic, you should buy your airline tickets from Qatar Airways. So you have a list of vendors, and those are authorized vendors, and whenever an item is ordered, they should be ordered from the authorized vendors and not someone who's not on that list. And monitoring the ordering process and training the purchasing agents and those people who place orders is necessary to avoid buying items from unauthorized vendors. Because the problem of buying from unauthorized vendors is that you don't know about their quality and their price and their reliability. So you want to stick to those vendors whom you have authorized, and they give you the best price and the best service, and you need to stick with them. Number 5, having electronic data interchange threats. So you might have your system hacked or your communication hacked, and You want to protect your company from that. So having a good IT infrastructure, a good IT security officer who would protect the company from this type of threats, like we have at Qatar University, for example. Anytime there is an email, phishing email from outside, we get an alert message from the IT department saying that don't respond or don't open this email because there is something, there's a virus in there. So this is how you mitigate the threats, is by having a good IT department who will watch out for any threats and protect the company from those threats. Number 6, purchasing of services. When you're buying goods, you can have something physical that is delivered to you, and you can count the goods and you can physically inspect the items. But when you're buying services, you are don't have anything physical to count. So, for example, if somebody's providing cleaning services, or somebody's providing gardening services, or somebody's providing um, security services, you are there is no way you can count that or monitor that after the service is provided. Whereas if somebody delivers inventory, you can count it, 2-3 days later, no problem, to make sure that everything is there, everything was of good quality. So if, for example, the cleaning company provides the cleaning service and you are inspecting it 3 hours later and the bathrooms or the restrooms are dirty, you could ask them that they were not, you could go to them and say they were not clean. They could say, we cleaned them, but people used it for 3 hours and it became dirty. So you need a manager responsible who would look at the items, who look at the service, the quality of the service, inspect it as it is provided so that you get what you're paying for. The second thing that you need to do for services, especially even for goods, is to compare the budgeted amount that you budgeted to spend for that particular item and then the actual amount that is spent. You remember, in managerial accounting, there is a good bit of discussion and exercises on budgeting. And the budgeting is done so that you can compare the budget with the actual expenses to monitor that you're spending for each one of these items. The spending is for the right amount and not more or less. So this also gives you an idea whether you're spending the right amount of money for getting the services that you want to get. Now, you can ask me questions anytime, and I'm going to continue, inshallah. You can stop and ask me questions anytime, inshallah. The next stage, the next step is receiving goods, and the first threat is receiving unordered items. Now, when we order something at home, if somebody brings the delivery, we know immediately that they have brought what we ordered, or they did not bring all the things we ordered, or they brought things that we did not order. It's very easy for us to do because we order a small amount of items, small number of goods. And we are the ones who are ordering, and we are the ones who are receiving. In the case of a business, the order is placed by the purchasing agent and the orders are received at the warehouse. So the people who are receiving the goods, they did not order the goods. So when receiving the goods, the purchase order should be looked at. The purchase order should be looked at to make sure that items that the supplier has brought are the items that were ordered. And if they brought something that was not ordered, that should not be accepted. So if you ordered only computers and they bring computers and tablets and phones, well, the tablets and phones you did not order, so you don't have to accept them, right? Receiving unordered goods it could cost you money in storing them and then later on returning them if you don't need them. And also the vendor might bill you for them, so you don't want to receive those items that you did not order. Errors in counting received goods. Now, the items are received in hundreds, maybe thousands, in quantities, maybe in hundreds or thousands. And the best way to reduce error is to automate as much as possible. So you could have barcodes and electronic frequency, radio frequency ID tags, which would ensure that the items counted are accurately counted. And the more you automate, the less you would have errors in counting the goods. Last is theft of inventory. When you're moving inventory from the truck to the warehouse, you have the movement of the inventory, boxes moved from one place to another. The truck is open, the warehouse is open, so you could have an issue with lost or stolen inventory. And the way you prevent that from happening is by having security guards, having security cameras, and people to monitor the transfer of inventory so that inventory is not lost or stolen as you transfer the items from the truck to the warehouse. Okay. Now, this is the second step. The third step, the third activity is the paying for the goods. And the first threat is failing to catch errors in the invoices. So when you get the invoice, you might get a bill that has an error. The amount may be wrong, the quantity may be wrong. So this could cause you to pay for goods that you did not receive, or pay more for the same item that is, not for the same price in your uh, ordering catalog. So the way it is done is the purchase order and the receiving report and the invoice are matched. Purchase order and the receiving report and the invoice are matched. If they are the same, that means you received the same items you ordered and your invoice is showing the same item, the same price, the same quantity, everything. These three together, there's a name for it. These three items together. Does anybody remember what we call these three documents together when they're in one folder when together? What do we call this? Does anybody remember these three documents? Voucher packet or voucher package? Very good. So these three are matched and then the payment is approved. If you do that, then the first two threats will be mitigated. You will catch the errors and you're not going to pay for anything you did not receive. Number three, failing to take purchase discounts when available. So some suppliers will offer purchase discounts. For example, 210 and 30, you get a 2% discount if you pay within 10 days, and you have to pay the net amount if you pay within 30 days. So 2% discount could be a lot if you're buying millions of reals worth of inventory, and taking the discount would lower your cost and increase your profit. So you want to take advantage of the discounts if you have the cash to do so. Number four, paying the same invoice twice. You will notice in many places they have a stamp that says paid and it's red and it's big and it's all capital letters, and they stamp the invoice as soon as it's paid with this red stamp. This is to ensure that that invoice is not handled twice. So this is a control to make sure that the same bill is not paid more than once. Has anybody seen this stamp, the paid stamp that they put on the piece of paper, right? So this is very common if you go to hospitals or if you go to car repair shops and so forth. They have this stamp that they stamp the paper with after it's paid. Number five, recording and posting errors to accounts. Now, when you're paying a supplier, you debit accounts payable and you credit cash. When you're paying, when you've paid, you debit accounts payable and you credit cash. Now, if you, for example, if you're Lulu, you will have an accounts payable for every single supplier, a separate accounts payable. You have an accounts payable for Baladna, you'll have an accounts payable for Al Rayyan, have an accounts payable for Dandy. When you pay Baladna, you will debit accounts payable Baladna and credit cash. When you pay Al Rayyan, you'll debit accounts payable Al Rayyan and credit cash and so forth. Now you can imagine they may have dozens of suppliers and they will have an individual accounts payable for each one of these suppliers. So what happens, it is very easy to post the item, post the debit to the wrong supplier. Then later on you would think you paid the supplier, but you did not, right? So being careful with this is necessary. Uh, when you use the wave accounting, when you're selecting from a list of accounts, right, how all of them are next to each other, this list. And if you have 20 accounts payable accounts, it's very easy, right, to select the wrong account, right? So the accountants should be trained properly, the bookkeepers should be trained properly, and they should do it with care so that they don't post the items in the wrong account. The last threat is misappropriation of cash, checks, or electronic fund transfers. Now, this is again, we discussed the fraud with cash and checks and electronic fund transfers in details in chapter 5. So those same controls are applicable to the expenditure cycle. You should have the proper security when handling cash. You should have lock boxes. You should have the checks under lock and key, and nobody should have access to these items other than those people who are handling and who are responsible, and the work should be reviewed. So all of those that we studied about misappropriation of cash, checks, or electronic fund transfers, those techniques also apply here, because cash or the checks, these are liquid items. If they're stolen, the company could suffer huge losses. Okay. Now, the next slide is a list of information in the expenditure cycle that we need to manage the expenditure cycle properly, to manage it efficiently and effectively. So we need to know this information. The first one is purchasing efficiency and effectiveness, meaning you want to buy all the inventory and supply items that you need for the business, but you want to buy them using the least amount of resources like computer time, labor cost, use of paper. All of these things are part of efficiency. So you want to do the ordering and the receiving that you need to, but you don't want to waste any resources in the process. Number two, time taken to move goods from receiving to production. Now, we're going to study the production cycle next week, inshallah. Or actually, starting from Tuesday, we'll start and we'll finish next week. The production cycle uses the inventory that is stored in the warehouse, which was purchased by the expenditure cycle. So the expenditure cycle's responsibility is to order and receive the inventory and store them in the warehouse. And if there is production, then the production cycle gets the inventory from the warehouse. Now, how long does it take to move the goods from the warehouse to the production is something that you need to keep track of, because you buy the inventory and it sits in the warehouse for a long time. It may be stolen, it costs money to store the goods, it may get damaged. So you want to know how long before the production are you ordering the inventory. If you buy the raw material and they go into production in 2 days, that is better than if you buy the inventory and they go into production in 7 days. So you want to know how long does it take for the raw material to go into production after you have received them. Number 3, percent of purchase discounts taken. So let's say 50 suppliers offer you discounts and you only take advantage of 5 of those offers. that means you're losing the money that is offered by 45 other vendors as a discount. So you want to know how many of those you're taking. What is the percentage? You're only taking the offer from five suppliers, and 50 of them offer the discounts. That means you're only taking advantage of 10% of those offers. And that means you're leaving money on the table. If you have cash, you should try to take the discount. 2% of a large amount is a large amount. Number 4, supplier performance. Remember, the suppliers are selected based on the quality and the price, the combination of the quality and the price, which we call the best value, and then also the reliability. When they deliver the goods, they are on time, the goods are not damaged, and they deliver what you ordered. So all of these things are part of supplier performance. If you monitor the supplier performance, their performance usually stays the same, or it might improve, because they know that you're watching and you might change them and might get another supplier. If you leave it alone and you don't do anything about it, then their performance will slowly go down. So you need to know how your suppliers are doing. Number 5, classification of inventory based on contribution to profitability. You want to know which inventory items are more profitable when you sell them, so that you can try to sell those more. Sometimes you go to the electronic goods section of the supermarket and you're trying to buy a particular brand of computer, and the salesperson is trying to push you to buy another brand. The reason they're trying to do that is that other brand or that other product has a higher profitability, and if you bought that, the company would make a higher profit and they would make a higher commission. So knowing this would uh, perhaps increase the profitability. Now, pushing the customer is not a good idea, but if the customer is trying to decide, and based on the customer needs, if the higher profitability item is actually going to be better for the customer, the inventory item could be lower in price. So for example, you might have a computer that is selling for 1000 reals and the cost is 600, and your profit is going to be 400, whereas another machine is selling for 900 and the cost is 300 and your profit is going to be 600. So if the second item, which is selling for 900, is better for the customer, then the customer is going to save 100 reals. The company is going to make 200 reals more profit, right? So knowing this information will help the salesperson offer the right item to the customer. Does that make sense? Right? Sales price, higher sales price does not necessarily mean that it is going to be more profitable. A lower priced item could be more profitable, right? Usually the new brand name items, new brand computers or shoes and so forth, they have a lower price, they might have a higher profitability. Okay. Last slide in the chapter is monitoring the performance of the expenditure cycle employees. So what you want to know here, monitor the performance of the different employees in the expenditure cycle, so that you can reward them for their performance, or you can withhold the reward when there is lack of performance. Number 1, number of purchase orders processed by the purchasing agent. Now, processing purchase order takes time, it takes computer resources, and it costs money. So the more a purchasing agent can do, not just more, but also accurately. Right? So you want to look at the quantity as well as the quality. So you want the purchasing agent to process as many purchase orders as possible while they are accurate. And if you monitor that, you can reward the purchasing agent that does the most, for example. Number 2, number of invoices processed by the accounts payable clerk. Same concept here. How many bills are processed and how many of them are processed accurately? So you want them to be processed quickly but accurately. Number of deliveries handled by the receiving clerk. How many trucks are unloaded? And while they are unloading the truck, They should make sure that the goods are not damaged or stolen or broken, so that you receive the items uh, you receive the items undamaged, and you can reward the clerk appropriately. It's a question from Shadat. It says, isn't this the responsibility of human resources cycle, since they're the one recruiting and training employees? Now understand, the human resources cycle does not operate in a vacuum. So for example, whether I am teaching a class well or not, human resource manager cannot monitor that. It has to be monitored by another accounting professor who knows the subject matter. So the human resources are responsible for arranging the facilities and providing the guidelines and so forth. But you need the experts in each department to monitor the performance. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the next is number of inventory moves by warehouse worker. How many inventory items are moved now again from the delivery truck to the warehouse, and to the warehouse, from the warehouse to the production facilities? How many inventory items are moved, and whether they're moved without damaging or losing uh, the items. This is a matrix that is useful in monitoring the performance of the warehouse workers. And the last one is inventory turnover. Inventory turnover is measured in days. If you buy inventory items and you sell them quickly, then the inventory turnover is shorter. So if you buy an item and you sell it within 2 days, it is better than you buy an item and you sell it in 7 days. So inventory turnover is measured in days, and the shorter it is, the better off you are. If you buy something, you hold it for a long time, it occupies space, it occupies your cash, it ties up your cash, and you could have used that money for something else. So you want to monitor those items that don't sell quickly. Maybe you want to reduce the number next time when you order, or you might want to not carry the item if you don't sell them except once or twice a year. You know, sometimes you go to the restaurant and some items on the menu you will find they no longer have. The reason for that most likely is nobody orders that, right? So they started to discontinue that item. Still in the menu, they should update the menu, but you will find that, right? Have you experienced this? Does this happen to Did this happen to anybody? When you order something from the menu and they said we don't have that, it means this is probably something that people don't order regularly. Okay. Any questions on chapters uh, 13 or 12? Anything that we discussed? Some upcoming deadlines um, in the next few days. The first one is on Tuesday, October 27th. There's a quiz on chapter 3. There's a third quiz on chapters 12 and 13. Same structure of the previous two quizzes. And on October 29th, project A is due. And from your questions, the questions that I've received from the students, and the progress seems like it's steady. I think you're on your way, inshallah, to submitting the project on the 29th of October. And the next project will be assigned next Sunday, November 1st, right? We only have 3 weeks of classes after this week, so we are getting close to the end of the semester. And the final exam schedule, I don't think it's available yet. Is it? Anybody know if it is? The final exam schedule is available? Okay, very good. When is the final exam for your class? 25th of November. Very good. What time? Eight to 10? Okay. Very good. So you should be preparing for it because less than a month. And there are 4 chapters included in the exam, as you know, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Right? So that's a pretty tight schedule around there for many of us. Actually, the schedule is much more flexible because usually the final exams are in 2 weeks. They're held in 2 weeks. And this time the exams are being held over 3 weeks, right? So they're more spread out. So although they start early, the exams are spread out, right? So now this 23, 24, 25, 29, which means it will be done by almost the end of November, right? So this can happen in certain cases for students. If you have 3 exams on the same day, then you can request for one of those exams to be taken later. Right, so we are going to reschedule that, Muhammad. The quiz, I will announce that the fourth quiz is going to be uh, before the classes end. Right, I'm going to announce that, inshallah. It is going to be before. I will finish also, and also finish the review and everything, inshallah. All of that will be finished by the time the class ends, inshallah. Okay? All right. Now, do you have any questions for me from chapters 12 or 13, or uh, in regards to the first project day? No questions? All right, then use the rest of the time for the exam, for the quizzes, and working on the projects, and I'll see you on Tuesday, inshallah. We'll have a short lecture at the beginning of the class, and then we'll have the quiz on Tuesday, inshallah. Okay? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.